Russia keeps trying to intimidate Ukrainians, and Ukrainians keep trying to target logistics. It's the weirdest thing to watch because it's almost like they're playing two different games, and that's the wrong analogy. This is not a game. This is very serious, but it's like one side is trying to play soccer, football, and the other is trying to play American football, and it's like they're doing two vastly different things here. And it's just what the Russians are doing is evil and outside the rules of war. I showed my daughter what I'm about to show you here, and she said, well, wait a minute, aren't they worried about the violating international rules of war? No, not at all. Okay, let's start here. Ukraine Security Service has detained a woman who planted an explosive in a Kyiv restaurant under instructions from Russian intelligence. It's a clear act of T in line with Russia's strategy of Shahed strikes across Ukraine and a human safari. They keep doing these kind of things. Now, what's interesting about this is Jason J. Smart. I've interviewed Jason J. Smart. I've been on interviewed by him for the Kyiv Post and on his channel. He was inside the cafe when the Russian FSB tried to blow it up. In response to the peace talks failing, sending a woman with 1.5 kilograms of TNT to kill civilians. In contrast, Ukraine struck military fuel depot in Sochi yesterday. Like this is what the difference is between what Russians do and what Ukrainians do. It's totally different things. Like let's look at what Jason was saying. This is he said, I survived Russian FSB bomb plot in Kyiv. Here's just a minute or so, and then I'll point you to the video.
So while Ukraine was targeting a military fuel target, the FSB tried to hit a Kyiv cafe full of civilians. In fact, a woman in her late 70s, early 80s walked into a very popular cafe in downtown Kyiv. She was dressed very nicely, and she, though, acted a little bit strange. And that prompted the attention of the waiters, who then got the manager, who then got the cops, and then came the intelligence service. And they secured the perimeter, and they began several tense hours of discussing with her what was in her bag. Why wouldn't she show them what was inside of her bag? And at the conclusion of this, she showed them what was in the bag. And there they found 1.5 kilograms in TNT equivalent. Now, her mission was to discreetly place explosives under a table and just walk away. Her Russian handlers planned to detonate those explosives remotely during peak evening hours to maximize the civilian casualties. Now, the SBU reported the woman had been recruited by Russian intelligence operatives, and she herself believed that she was doing this for Ukraine. That is, she was part of a fabricated false flag mission. She did not think she was doing this for the Russians. She thought she was doing this for the Ukrainians. And so they took her phone, and sure enough, they found that that was the case. It contained direct communication with a Russian handler and the geolocation data of the cafe that she was sent to attend.
So this is the kind of thing that the Russians are doing to the Ukrainians to target civilians. And it's just amazing. Russia is attacking Ukrainian cities with one goal. By the way, with that video, I'll post that at the very end so that you can see the rest of it if you want to. Anything Jason J. Smart puts out is worth watching. Okay, Russia is attacking Ukrainian cities with one goal, and that's T. Russia is stalling for more time. Russia wants to prolong the war. And then Anton Gerashenko is writing this, and he posted something that I thought, oh, something clicked. Okay, the U.S. Congress is going to recess until September 2. September 2 is at 50 days. Now, I know people say, well, Trump's just giving his buddy Putin 50 days in order to do whatever he wants. That's an unsatisfactory answer. There seems to be there's got to be a better logic. Maybe this is it. I don't know. But Congress will come back into session on September 2nd. European Parliament reconvene on September 8th. Okay, maybe there's something there. I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments below. 7 people were injured, including 1 child, as a result of Russian missile strike on Cherkasy last night. Windows and roofs of 9 two-story apartment buildings were damaged. At least 15 residential buildings and a local cemetery were also damaged. That's just in one city. Then we see Russian forces have carried out airstrikes on Kherson. According to initial reports, 75-year-old woman was injured and taken to the hospital with blast trauma. Strikes on civilians continue. These photos show the aftermath of Russia's attacks today in Odessa and Kharkiv. And then Putin's forces dropped glide bombs on busy residential complex in Kharkiv. Many may be trapped under the rubble. So this isn't just drones and missile strikes. There's now glide bombs and other things involved. Russia just casually dropping JDAMs on apartment blocks in Ukraine's second largest city in broad daylight on a Thursday morning. That's what the Russians are doing. They're not going after military targets here. Russian warplanes bombed central Kharkiv. 33 were injured, including a 10-year-old girl, a 17-year-old boy with head wounds. Fires destroyed 15 cars. One woman is in critical condition. They're just, yeah. Odessa, Russia struck a residential area. Part of a 9-story building was completely destroyed. Several sections caught fire. Dozens were injured, and rescue operations are underway. That is in Odessa. Russians destroyed a historical building of Odessa Privoz Market, an iconic market hall, which was built in 1817, survived both world wars. Yeah, this is where they are. Here's Zelensky talking about it yesterday at the meeting in Istanbul. The proposal for an immediate full ceasefire was reiterated to the Russian side. In response, Russian drones struck residential buildings and the Privoz Market in Odessa, apartment blocks in Cherkasy, energy infrastructure in Kharkiv region, a university gym in Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Sumy, Mykolaiv regions were all under strikes as well. In total, there were 103 attack drones, mostly Shaheds, and 4 missiles. So that means 107 targets. 107 is still very low. That's on top of 71 the day before and 42, I believe, the day before that. There's low, low, low. There's this pattern of low, 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 and then strikes. Not going to predict when that's going to happen. I learned my lesson, but it's coming. I can tell you that there's going to be another big blitz somewhere shortly. Okay. Meanwhile, there's some interesting news here. I remember when Eric Schmidt started talking about this, the former CEO of Google, and now here it is come to fruition. It's been revealed that billionaire and former Google CEO Eric Schmidt is involved in the production of drones for Ukraine, including interceptor drones. Reportedly, 9 out of 10 Shaheds are being destroyed by interceptor drones produced by Schmidt's company, Swiftbeat. These drones are equipped with built-in artificial intelligence and are resistant to Russian electronic warfare systems that typically disrupt communication signals. That's why they're so effective. Schmidt noted that these drones have proven themselves brilliantly in the war. I remember like a year and a half ago, him talking about, like, I was showing something for class and he was talking about this and how like this has captured his attention and he really wants to contribute in some way. And so thank you, Eric Schmidt. Okay. Deadly Ukrainian drone attacks hit southern Russia. So what's Ukraine doing to Russia? Well, they're not terrorizing the population, although some people will say that. I'll show you this in just a moment. The Russian city of Sochi was hit overnight by Ukrainian drone attacks on 24 June, killing at least 1 person. And Russians, during last night's attacks on Sochi, saying, why is Sochi being bombarded? I don't get it. They should be bombarding Russia. Yeah. Okay. Maybe Sochi should be Ukraine. Maybe that's what part of this is about. Maybe she just doesn't understand her geography. Ukraine's hit Sochi. Well, why'd they hit Sochi? A drone strike blows up a Lukoil depot. Okay, that makes sense. Ground flights at Russia's top Black Sea airport were grounded, and oil depot in flames, flights canceled, attack deep inside Russian territory. And there's more to the story. Russian Telegram channels report a drone attack on Sochi, Russia, and Krasnodar region last night. Reportedly, Lukoil railway warehouses at the Sochi freight yard and the operations control center were also hit. There were also reports that drones may have hit a railway bridge in the Moldovka area, key logistics route used by the Russian army to transport personnel, equipment, ammunition to the front line. So while the Russians are harassing civilians, this is what the Ukrainians are doing. Ben Hodges says the best way to negate Russia's advantage of mass is by destroying their logistics and headquarters. Spot on. That's what they're trying to do. Okay, on the battlefield, let's look at it day over day. 1050 Russians off the battlefield, 5 tanks, 10 armored fighting vehicles, 24 artillery systems, 96 vehicles and fuel tanks. And yet, when I look at Pokrovsk, it was interesting. Let's first look at Andrew Perpetua, the losses he could identify for yesterday, and it's about 1.5 to 1 Ukrainian losses to Russian losses. Not good. It's been like this for a couple weeks now, maybe longer, because I've gotten out of the practice of showing this, but that's what's going on the battlefield. Pokrovsk direction was only 36 assaults, and so that's very low for the number of casualties that we see there. Ukrainian forces recently advanced near Chasiv Yar. Russian forces recently advanced in northern Sumy and western Zaporizhia Oblast near Borova. Okay, Sputnik putting this out by President's order, by Putin's order. Russia expands buffer zone. Really? I mean, okay, Russian army is pushing deeper into Kharkiv region as part of the operation to strengthen the sanitary zone on the border. But I'm not sure that they're really making the progress that Sputnik is trying to make it look like. Meanwhile, the drones are tracking down and destroying enemy artillery systems and antenna complexes and howitzers and all kinds of stuff. Like they can see when you come out. I mean, you're being watched constantly. So I don't know why they think that they're not. Okay, people keep asking. Now, this is ground drones. Andrew Perpetua is answering a question. People keep asking, how many ground vehicles can Ukraine afford to lose? The answer is simple. If a unmanned ground vehicle costs less money than a pickup truck, then it will keep being used no matter how many are lost. Even more so, they are cheaper than a car. I hope Ukraine can move to a unmanned ground vehicle-based logistics. I can imagine tunnels for unmanned ground vehicles. They can be rather small. They can let you supply dangerous areas. Granted, you'd need to know where is dangerous many months ahead of time to dig such tunnels, but it's much easier to dig a underground unmanned ground vehicle tunnel than one for a car. So yeah, there's that. And then there's a compilation of SBU strikes on the Russian infantry. Yeah, okay. Now, Germany is actually doing something. I showed something with China doing this with small flies, but okay, Germany, has mighty army of cockroaches. Look at this. They're going to have swarms of cockroaches. The startup Swarm Biotics has created biorobots based on living insects and offered to the German army to use its unique technology. The cyborg cockroaches are equipped with special miniature backpacks and cameras for the reconnaissance and surveillance. Listen to this. The military will be able to control each cockroach individually. The second option is working autonomously in entire swarms. That's pretty crazy stuff. Okay, just a few more things. Just a little commentary. Michael McKay, who does the maps of how many attacks in each direction. Civilized world failed to destroy the Moscow Empire in 1919, failed to destroy it in 1945, failed to destroy it in 1991. The Moscow Empire's genocidal war of aggression today is the last chance Western civilization will get to save itself. Like, the point is that the Tsarist authoritarians, the Soviets didn't wipe out the authoritarians, they just replaced them. After 1945, they didn't have to pay because they were the victors. After 1991, they didn't have to pay because it collapsed and they started over, but the cultural thinking has never gone away. Okay, here another prisoner exchange took place. I talked about this last night, but it's worth repeating, and I added a little bit to it. Severely ill and severely wounded defenders have returned home to Ukraine. This is the 9th stage of the exchange. So the Istanbul conference back on the 2nd of June, it was still worth it because they still started to exchange over 1,000 prisoners, and that's great, prisoners of war. Adam, a Ukrainian defender from Volyn region, returned from Russian captivity. Russia had offered him to stay in Russia. He would never serve Russia, he told them. Quote, "We will fight for our Ukraine and stand our ground for our homeland and for our children." That's right. It's a good day when your enemy's in front of you and your wife and your kids are behind you. Okay. He, the Russian, said, "You went to war for money." Adam replied, "I fought for my wife, for my children, and for my homeland, so that they may live and thrive." Very different motivations. Okay. And just to show that they don't get it, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia posted this, like just to like show the world we still don't understand how the world works. July 21st marked 85 years since the establishment of the Latvian, Lithuanian, and Estonian SSR. That's the People's Republics or the Soviet republics of those Baltic countries that were gobbled up after World War II and incorporated into the Soviet Union. Despite the significant advantage of large-scale Soviet investments and subsidies, these nations have been reduced to Europe's economic periphery today. I think pound for pound, they're probably doing better than Russia is, just for, I mean, their size. But is it because of large scale Soviet investments or because you pillage them? Like what's going on here? Okay. Back to the prisoner exchange. Ukraine brought back Vitaly Horenko, the last defender of Simi, that's Snake Island, from Russian captivity. The defenders of Snake Island in the Black Sea became known in 2022 for their now iconic phrase of Russian warship, go blank yourself. And this is the last one that was captured and has been returned. Okay, Jake Bros, Save the Donkeys campaign. Where are we with that? Yesterday, at about this time, it was $627,000, and let's update it now. And they are up to 677. Did I do it last night or yesterday? Nonetheless, it's $677,000 of their $1 million campaign. This, I think, is day 5 of that $1 million campaign. If you wish to donate, I'll have the link below. Leave you with this. Good morning from a country where even under fire, people still find a reason to smile. That's all, my friends. That's all that I have for you this morning. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. By the way, I put out a small little 2-minute update on what was going on with the protest and Zelensky. Go back and watch that. It's pretty awesome what has just taken place. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.